Okay, good afternoon, guys. I make it just after 6 o'clock. Welcome to ENTP7311. And if you are expecting to see a video regarding Learning Unit 7, the screen should tell you that the plan has changed. The reason the plan has changed, and I didn't want to change the actual the pacer, because I am going to deal with Learning Unit 7, but I realized when I was prepping this over the weekend, I realized, I also need to speak about the final POE submission because it's 2 weeks odd out before we've got to do the first thing. And I do realize you're waiting for your results. You should have your results of the second assignment by probably Monday. They should be published. But here's the thing. Learning Unit 7 is a strange learning unit because there's no prescribed, or the prescribed material is not in your textbook. It is those 4 documents you see on the screen. It's Gura and Urquhart's article on corporate entrepreneurship programs as a mechanism to accelerate product innovation. Kafili's article, A Framework of Entrepreneurship Development for Corporate Entrepreneurship. Then there's Karatko, Montago, and Hornsby, developing an entrepreneurial assessment instrument for an effective corporate entrepreneurial environment. And lastly, Mustafa's article on entrepreneurship among emerging economy SMMEs. And you have to now work through those 4 things. And I know this is quite a daunting prospect to go read those 4 articles. So what I've gone and done is I've given you this. So on the left-hand side, well, firstly, you've got to download the articles. On the left-hand side is a screenshot from ARC. If you go to Lecture Resources under Learning Unit 7, you will find the 4 articles there. But you'll also find an article called Corporate Entrepreneurship. If you click on that article, it is a summary of the 4 articles, right? So you read that and you know what the 4 articles say. And then I've also made a video clip, the Intrapreneur's Dilemma, that covers the rest of the unit. There's my AI declaration. I've used Google Notebook LM to do both the summary and the video clip. And it's basically just to give you an introduction to entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship, all the intra instead of inter, entrepreneurship is internal entrepreneurship. Intra, the word intra means internal, and entrepreneurship to start a new business. And what this is in big corporate organizations, they would sometimes start something small inside the company and then spin that out if it works as a separate company. But it's a big corporate acting like an entrepreneur. A very good case that I can give you, and it's an example I really like, is the case of 3M. Now, if you know about the 3M company, you'll know they manufacture a lot of things, reflective tapes, glues, a lot of mining safety equipment, and the famous little Post-it. Now, the Post-it, how that came about was they had somebody looking at temporary glues, almost like a Pritt type of glue that you can stick a picture, but something that you can pull the picture out without leaving any residual. And while these chemists were developing that glue, or trying to develop that glue, they made a glue that stuck, but it didn't stick good enough and so on. And one of the guys used that to put on paper and stick notes on around his workspace, just to remind him of things. And the MD of 3M at the time was walking through the lab, just doing what a good manager does and walk management by walking around. And he saw this and he said to the guy, "What's this?" The guy said, "No, it's just little notes to remind me." And he told the MD, "Funny story, this is the glue we're trying to develop." And the MD said, "But hang on, let's have a look at it." And that's how Post-it notes were developed. And they developed it internally and started it as a small company. And they eventually spun out Post-it as a separate, it's still part of the 3M group, but they spun it out as a separate business, separate promotion. You wouldn't know that Post-it is made by 3M if you didn't go read the label on Post-it to see the 3M logo and see it's manufactured by 3M. So that's a typical example of entrepreneurship. But if you Go read the document I created. And yes, it will be handy if you read through the 4 others. But if you look at that document, you look at the entrepreneur's dilemma, you should be fine, and that is covered. And therefore, I decided I would rather move on from Learning Unit 7 to get you cracking on what's important, and that is passing the subject by completing the final POE submission. Okay, so this POE works in 2 parts. There is a part that is the POE, the written part that you're going to hand in, and there is a live presentation, right? The so-called Shark Tank presentation. Now, if you go read the instructions, Shark Tank, if you've looked at the assignment, you probably haven't seen Shark Tank. You read the POE, it gives you the rubric, and after the rubric, it only deals with Shark Tank. And I'm supposed to get some people to come sit in the meeting and judge you and so on. And that's very difficult to do, firstly, and secondly, students find it extremely intimidating. So I will be the Shark Tank. I will be the person, I will ask you some questions. We will also do Shark Tank before the submission date. The reason, and I'll talk dates now. The reason why we do Shark Tank first is it gives you an opportunity to present to me. It gives me an opportunity to give you some questions, pointers. I don't want to call it criticism, but if there's something that's concerning, I can discuss it with you. And the presentation is a relatively low part of the final score. You can then go and fix it because it's a week later before you submit the actual POE. And as I will describe just now to you, you will see that you can do the Shark Tank without really completing the POE. So it's 2 parts. And I therefore want to give you the opportunity to do the Shark Tank, get the feedback from me, and put that in your final POE, and thereby increase your final POE mark. Okay, so let's move on, the key points. So we're talking now about the actual Shark Tank presentation, the actual POE presentation or submission, at least, sorry. So if you look there, 3rd of November is when you hand in the POE, but the Shark Tank is on the 27th of October. So we do the Shark Tank on the Wednesday, that is 2 weeks from now. And then 3 weeks from now on the Wednesday evening, you hand in the POE. So the POE, I'm going to deal with the POE first. The POE is obviously due that evening at 12 o'clock. Late is late. If you're late, you're going to get 15% deducted if you hand it in a day later. If you hand it in 48 hours later, you get 0. Guys, please don't plan to hand it in late. I know some students do that, but I've seen horrible things happen. A student hands in, gets 60% for the assignment, but they've handed in late. They lose 15%, right? So that takes you down to from 60 to 50 to 45. And there was a problem with your referencing. Suddenly you're at a 35. You were on a 60. Suddenly you're at a 35 because you've lost 10% for referencing, 15% for late. A passable, comfortable pass assignment becomes a horrible fail assignment. And now you're in jeopardy whether you're going to pass the subject. So please hand it in time. Please remember that to reference correctly. You know by now I'm a stickler for referencing. I insist that you reference correctly. And remember about the AI declaration. If you use AI in any form, shape, you must declare AI. It's actually at this point, I almost want to say I frown upon it if I don't see an AI declaration, because I know most of you are using AI. And remember, even something like a Word, a spell checking, an external spell checker outside of Word is an AI. You need to, if you use Grammarly, you need to declare it. So make sure you know how to declare it and declare it correctly. If you don't know, if you're nervous about your referencing, or if in the first assignment or the second assignment I've addressed your referencing or your AI usage, please make sure you make contact with the Information Center. That's a different name for the library at the online campus, and ask for assistance from them. Do it sooner rather than later. They more than like, they really like to help you. And they will go the extra mile. You have 2,000 to 2,500 words for this. It's plenty words. You won't run out of words. You will have to rely on what you've done in assignment 1 and assignment 2 to help you through, because the POE builds on assignment 1 and assignment 2. Please remember this is an essay, so there's no bullets. You need to write it out. And basically what you need to do, you do your cover page, you do an introduction. If you want to do an index, please feel free to do an index. But please, if you do an index, I see so many students do this. They do an index and they say, this is on page 1, this is on page 2, blah, blah, blah. But the page numbers are not, the pages aren't numbered. So cover page, introduction, you do question 1.1 to question 1.4, you write a conclusion, a reference list, and your appendices, and in your appendices is your AI declaration. So that's the complete assignment. Now let's take this assignment and break it down a little bit further and see what the actual information is that you need to do. So question 1.1 comes out of chapter 16. So I'm taking the Neck, and Murray chapters. I'm not using learning units. If you want to relay it back to learning units, please have a look at your module guide, your module outcomes. In there, it'll tell you exactly what your which is which, but it's chapter 60. And here we need to discuss the stakeholders, right? So you need to discuss the stakeholders. You need to name the stakeholders. You need to tell them who are the exact stakeholder. The Mitchell stakeholder topology would come in handy there from chapter 16. And you need to make sure that you can tell me which stakeholders will help you, because remember, we get friendly stakeholders, but you also get stakeholders that will hinder us, that will work against our app. So which is which there? You need to describe that for me. And your reasoning and your argumentation is very important here. If you can look at the rubric, they actually concentrate on how do you reason that this is a stakeholder? How do you reason that this stakeholder will assist you, will help you? And what is your argumentation around that? The sources you use there, you must start with Neck, and Murray. And take the basics from Neck, and Murray, and then expand to others. Guys, please don't go start and Google stuff and ask chat and do all of this stuff. I have to mark you according to our curriculum. If you're using stuff that's outside of our curriculum, I can't give you the marks. I can't certify that you're competent in our curriculum. So please start with Neck, and Murray. Take what Neck, and Murray says, and then find other sources and build on there so that you've got more sources. Remember, you a third year student. If you want to have a semi-okay mark, you need to use 7, 8 sources at least. Using just Neck, and Murray won't give you a good mark. It will barely give you a pass mark. So you have to use additional sources. So question 1.2 comes out of chapter 6, and this is the customer journey map. So you've previously decided what your segment is that you're serving, and so use that segment, and then you've got to do a visual representation of what the customer journey map looks like. And you can use, if you can look at chapter 6, you'll see the 6 steps or 5 stages. Both are there. I don't mind which ones you use, but the key is application. The key is taking those steps or stages and applying them in a visual representation to your app. Yeah, you're going to have to use further resources. Yeah, you would probably use some AI if you want to do an interesting picture, but it's not that difficult. You must do an illustration. It's a visual. So the customer journey map is a visual representation of the map, and I'll show you examples. But you must also discuss what is happening. So the 5 or the 6 points, discuss it. Table 6.5 is handy to look at. It'll help you, but a table isn't the answer. Okay, but it gives you direction. Okay, so here's a very complex what they call a digital experience journey. It's a customer journey map. It's all it is. And this tells you where the customer gets onto the digital signage, how they move through, whether evaluating, and these are the steps, the steps and the stages. This is the evaluation phase. This is the acquisition phase. That's the utilization or consummation phase, and that's the advocacy phase. And they've described it all here. That is a very complex one, a bit over the top perhaps. But the description is part of it, and this is obviously being done by somebody who's really good at illustrating and using software and so on. But this is also an acceptable one, right? 100%. So what we have is awareness of the product, the consideration of the product, the purchase of the product, and the advocacy. But look at what they've done. In the awareness phase, there's public relations. They're going to use radio, TV, and print and word of mouth. This then starts to go more into the consideration where the customer is starting to look at it, where they start seeing online ads, they're reading reviews, they're looking at blogs. We're starting to go to the purchase phase. This purchasing might be due to a direct mail they've received. It might be an e-commerce or even a physical shop. Then we have a website where they can start talking about it. They can give you feedback. There will be promotions where people can comment on it. And then in the social networks, hopefully they will start advocating. So if you do something like this, now remember, these are not the steps or the stages. This is a separate steps and stages from a different source. You must use the 5 stages, the 6 steps, or is it the other way around, from Neck and Murray to create something like this or something like that if you wish, or whatever you wish to create to illustrate the process that the customer is going to go through from the first time that they hear about your app until they've used it and the post-usage phase. You need to illustrate it, and whatever you illustrate, you then need to discuss in a short discussion. But I need to, if you just give me a picture like that, I'm not sure I understand what I'm looking at. But if you do then a paragraph below it that you describe the journey, etc., you will be fine. This is a question that students break their heads about, but it's actually quite easy. Just show me the experience that the customer is going to go through by using Neck and Murray's 5 steps, 6 stages, 6 stages, 6 steps, 6 steps, whatever what was it that they said? Let me just check the 6 steps or the 5 stages. Okay, moving on. So now we had question 1.3, which comes out of chapter 8. Mission, vision, value statement for your app. Straightforward. First year business management. But you need to go pull other sources. You need to make sure that that vision, mission, and value statement makes sense. It's aligned to your app. It's aligned to your customers. It's aligned to the segmentation that you selected. So make the statement, show them, make them pretty, do whatever you want to, but discuss each briefly. Tell me why the content in there is what it needs to do. Some people write really long vision, mission statements and a value statement. Others are very short and sharp and to the point. I believe both can be effective, but a lot of this is in the how you explain it. And also a lot of it is how you understand what a mission is, what a vision is, and what a value statement is. Make sure you understand those differences between the 3 things before you start typing away. Okay. Moving right along. Last question, question 1.4 from chapter 11. Failure is a part of entrepreneurship, right? It's going to happen. It happens a lot more than people realizes. I've spoken about this a couple of weeks ago to you. And we therefore have to consider that reasons why could your app fail? What could go wrong? Why would your app not be successful? So look at those reasons, and then you select one of the reasons, and you tell me what will you learn from that if it fails for that reason? How will this help you in future? What are you going to learn from this, and what are you going to do with that information in the future? Then discuss grit, right? as an what is grit and how grit will help you to be successful. And once again, start with Nick and Murray, but you've got to use more sources than just Nick and Murray. You've got to go look at more things. Go look at what Nick and Murray says about grit, and then take that and move on. Right. So then you write a conclusion. How do these 4 issues affect you and the future of your app? And that will be 150 to 200 words. You must check your referencing. Use Grammarly if you're not sure about your language, and make sure your spell checker is on. It's a basic thing. You can't hand in something with spelling errors, and then check if you've used a whole lot of sources. Hand it in early so you can check what your plagiarism looks like, just to make sure if you need to fix that. You have now that part. I would suggest that you get to a final draft before we do the next part. Sorry. So you will receive an email from me to book your Shark Tank slot. So moving on to the Shark Tank. So the Shark Tank presentation is a separate presentation from the POE that we're going to do on the 27th of this month, where you will book a slot and you will present to me live. The assignment specifically says present live. You cannot do a recording and send it in. You have to present live. I must be able to ask you live questions. But remember what I said right at the beginning. This gives you an opportunity to present to me, to showcase what you're doing, and for me to give you some feedback so that you can improve your final submission, which will hopefully then increase the final submission marks. Here's the nitty-gritties. As I said, I'll email you a booking tool. There'll be slots for you from 5:45 until 7:15. There's 6 slots. There's 5 students. So there's enough slots. When I send out the booking, the link, you'll be able to book it. Just a word of warning. Make sure that your email is set. So I'll email it to your normal email. You'll then, there'll be a link. You'll click on the link, and then you will be booking a slot in my email or in my diary, my electronic diary. On my side, it will show right. Make sure that the time on your side is set correctly to South African, Central African time. Pretoria is the normal thing, the word that you look for, because otherwise you'll see that you're presenting like 4 a.m. or something stupid because you set on New York time. So please make sure that that's correct. But I will probably, as soon as everybody's booked, I will send out an email with the slots and who's presenting at what time. You don't have to be there all the time. You come in just before your presentation. There might be somebody still presenting when you come in. You come in, you just wait for your slot. Boom. I say thank you, goodbye to the previous person. I say, hi, John, how are you doing? Are you ready to start your presentation? You will be able to share your presentation. I will show you how to share it. You will be a presenter. You'll see later on, I'll mention it, that please email me your presentation before the time. The reason why I want you to email the presentation before the time is if you are not able to upload it or there's a technical glitch, I can still play the presentation from my side and you can voice over it. Any tool you want to do, doesn't matter, PowerPoint, Canva, or anything else that you want to do. Furthermore, you need to use the info from assignment 1-2 and the POE and learning unit 7. So you don't need to have completed the POE. You just need to have thought about the POE and possibly have a draft going. You can decide if you want a talking head or not. Talking head is what you see on the screen. It's me talking, right, with the slides. In terms of your slides, please look at slides and develop them using the 6x6 rule. 6 lines, no more. 6 words per line, no more. You'll also note I'm talking to the slides. I'm not reading the slides. It's the worst presentation possible to sit here and I say, use info from assignment 1 to POE and LU7. Talking head or not, your choice. Slides 6x6 rules. Do not read the slides. Practice. Reference and AI declaration. Email me the slides before the presentation. That's not a presentation. I can read that as well. Then you might as well just put the slides up and sit there and give me the opportunity to read the slides. It'll probably be less boring for me if you just sit there, and I'll rather read the slides. So I'm talking to the slides. I'm using those bullets on the slides, and I've seen I broke my own rule. There's 7 bullets rather than 6 on that slide. So see that slide isn't really busy, and that's already worse than the 6x6 rule. So I don't mind if you have something next to you, but try to speak to it. Don't read your presentation, right? Tell me about it. It makes it interesting. It makes your marks go up there. When you're reading, your marks are going to be a little bit not so lacquer. And the only way you can do that is practicing it, right? You have to practice this. This is not something that you can do for the first time when you are presenting on the evening. There must be a slide with referencing at the end. There must be an AI declaration at the end. We need those 2 things. And email me the slides before the presentation, right? So that I have them. I don't mind if you email them to me 5 minutes before the presentation. I would prefer if you email it before 17:45, 5:45 that evening, because then I can get all the slides downloaded. I can have them ready. Something goes wrong, I could just upload your slides. Please name your slides with your name. Don't call it presentation 1, so that I can know which slides to upload if it's needed. So that's the background information. What do you have to do? So you need to, when you start pitching, and look in Nick and Murray. There's something called the pitch deck in Nick and Murray. Go read what the pitch deck says. It's not going to do you any harm to read the pitch deck. And you'll use the pitch deck next semester again. So the first thing you need to say is, who are you pitching to? So tell me which company, because remember, in the theory, you're taking your app and you're pitching it to a company that you want them to invest in your app. So the first thing you say to me is, how's it, Gardel? I will be presenting tonight to Siemens. I'll be presenting tonight to HP. I will present tonight to Eskom. I will present tonight to government. And then you give me an introduction, right? And your introduction is simply an overview of what we're going to talk about. Then we get to the hard part. What MDG are you addressing? And MDG, SDG, sorry, I use those words interchangeably. What does your app do? And how does it address that thing? And lastly, how will an investment address the corporate entrepreneurship? That's learning unit 7, right? So I've listed it there as corporate entrepreneurship, or you can simply say intrapreneurship. It's the same thing. Corporate entrepreneurship is also intrapreneurship. And that's what I spoke about right at the beginning. And then do a conclusion. Say, thank you very much. Blah, 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 blah. End of story. Let's go look at the meat, those 3 things you've got to go do. So what MDG are you covering? Tell me, what are they? What are they? Where do they come from? Why do we have them? Why were they created? That were spelled wrongly. And it balks me when I see that. What are they? Why were they created? Which one are you addressing? Which is the specific one you're taking? And why is this an important issue for the company that you're pitching to, for the people, the country, the world? Why is this an issue? Why is it on the list? Why do we need to do something about this? Then talk to me about your app. What is it that your app does, and how does it address this MDG? So what's the reason for the app? What's the app going to do to the MDG? Remember, those things are massive, the MDGs. So you're probably only addressing a certain part of it. Who's the part? Who's your target market? Who's going to look at this? Who are you trying to address this to? Who are the people that actually are going to use it? No? Then how does it work? What does the app do? What's the function of the app? And what part will it solve? So the first part and the last part is similar to each other, but this tells us what the app looks like, what it's going to do, how it's going to work, and why it's important. The last part is LU7, Learning Unit 7, those 4 articles I spoke about early. Briefly, what is corporate entrepreneurship? What is intrapreneurship? What's the definition of it? How will this app then allow the company to address their corporate entrepreneurship? So the company that you're pitching to, what will they be able to do with this app, and how will this app feature in them? And how does this create value for the company? Why is this something that they would want to do or want to use and make it part of their stable of products, spin it out as a separate company on its own? Why are they going to be doing this? And then you do a conclusion and a summary. Folks, I can't overestimate this. Practice it. You need to practice this several times. Please don't go learn a speech off heart. Just speak through your slides in your own words. And if you do it 2 or 3 times, use your slides. Remember at school they taught you to make bullet notes and have a little cue card. Your slide is your cue card. When you see that cue card, you need to know what you're talking about. Try not to learn a speech, because then it's going to sound like you at the Eisteddfod busy reciting a poem. So try to think about what you want to say, but practice it a couple of times. It really improves your delivery. It'll improve your mark, and it also gives me an opportunity to give you some honest feedback on what you're talking about and give you some guidance so that you can strengthen your POE. If you've got further questions, there's my email address. Please feel free to drop me an email anytime. And guys, I look forward to your presentations in 2 weeks from now. Thanks. Keep well, Chaz.